The way they are going now, truly.
Yes. So there's a possibility you may not be a candidate based on how...
Not even a candidate. I might not even be alive. I'm telling you. Every single thing I do for a living, this government is frustrating it. Deliberately so.
America has given him a condition. No more Muslim ticket.
The journalists sitting in the big capital cities, the big cities and in the capital, who were taking the line from the government and didn't have the courage or the integrity or the professionalism or the character or the motivation to go to those frontline villages. They just bought the line from the government that it wasn't really happening, and they bought the line from the U.S. State Department that this is nomadic tribesmen being forced to move from climate change.
Cheryl, I think we need to move away from political correctness in this country. And I think we should stop being scared of speaking the truth and saying it as it is. Now, because this is somebody I have known for many, many years, since we were both in the NRC in the early 90s. And I have nothing personal against him. But I must tell you that if he wants to convince the world that he has nothing to do with Boko Haram, then let him explain his relationship with Muhammad Yusuf, the man who started Boko Haram and who was murdered in mysterious circumstances by the police. Let him tell us how it was or who it was that he was using as his local thugs whilst he was governor of Borno State, two-time governor, who his local thugs were, who led those local thugs, and let him tell us that it wasn't Muhammad Yusuf that actually led them and that he wasn't funding and organizing them. Let him tell us who...
All right, Peter Obi feared that his life may be at risk. He's afraid with what is happening now in Nigeria. For the first time in the history of this country, opposition is under threat of death. For the first time. Before now, it has been opposition threatening the government in power. During Goodluck Jonathan, it was Buhari who was threatening. It was this President Tinubu was threatening. Now, the reverse is the case. In fact, this government, people are saying it, that it has exposed a lot of things they know that is not possible. But they are possible this time around, and it has exposed a lot of Nigerians what they can do. Watch this thing.
The way they are going now, truly.
Yes. So there's a possibility you may not be a candidate based on how...
Not even a candidate. I might not even be alive. I'm telling you. Every single thing I do for a living, this government is frustrating it. Deliberately so. Everything. So there's even possibility, if they have opportunity, I will not be alive.
Oh, wow. That's a big...
It's an accusation. I know I get frustration every day. Because you do things that you think they will be normal. It is not normal any longer. They won't come directly and say, oh, we're doing this. But you could see their hand in everything.
So the government is attacking you personally?
They're attacking everybody who is in opposition personally.
Right.
I am being attacked personally. Everything. Even to provide me with necessary things that I should have been entitled to. Not at all. I had a case recently at the airport. Okay. Where people who work in the airport came and locked my car. And I said, it's me. The person on the side said, doesn't care. But I said, look at the cars of other people. And you could see them talking to each other. You know, as if, who is this one? We have divided the country, breeding hatred among us. That's why I keep saying, I want to bring back unity where there's division. I want to show love, compassion, care. It's gone out of here. I said, I'm looking at somebody. He locked my car in front of me and saying, you're not supposed to park here. But there's cars here. So what is the exception to my own? Through the Anansi people I know at the airport, they will not greet me. Because they are fearing that if they greet me,
they become targets of the government.
Thank you. And I have people send me invitation and say, my son, my daughter is wedding, but please don't come. Yes.
Yes, you have seen it, and Nigerians might think that the international bodies are not seeing what is going on in Nigeria. I bet you that this thing that is happening, it will expose these people the more. People, instead of people being against Peter Obi, people will now have more trust to Peter Obi. It's not, naturally, I don't talk about politics like that, but you see this thing this one now, in fact, is a very big issue. It's a very big thing to overlook. Cannot overlook it. You see, this one that has happened now, this one Peter Obi is saying, does he look like somebody that is forming it? Because next thing now they will say that, don't mind him, he's trying to form. I know these people. I know what they can do in this country. It's going to gather more support for Peter Obi, and people will now see the reason why Peter Obi has to be there. People will now see the reason why they are fighting Peter Obi. There is something God wants Peter Obi to deliver this country so that people can live their life in whichever way they want. Yes, let's watch this. I know some of you have not seen it, but it is available for some time now in the public domain. I never knew that the world is watching and taking note like this.
There was no Truth Nigeria. There was no media organizations. And you know what was happening to those people? To Lawrence and Masara Kim and all of them? The journalists sitting in the big capital cities, the big cities and in the capital, who were taking the line from the government and didn't have the courage or the integrity or the professionalism or the character or the motivation to go to those frontline villages. They just bought the line from the government that it wasn't really happening, and they bought the line from the U.S. State Department that this is nomadic tribesmen being forced to move from climate change. The Fulani are not really terrorists. Oh, the fact that they're Muslims got nothing to do with it. Because they're nomadic tribesmen, they're looking for other land. They're looking to go somewhere, and that's forcing them to clash with the Christian villages. Nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. That is just an example to you of how climate has been used as a scam. I mean, it's not just fake, it's much worse than that. All of these systems that are being implemented that are so profoundly dishonest, they're systems of control. How do we control the people, control the information and the narrative, and then have that as cover to do whatever it is that we want to do, which, by the way, is to go into Christian villages and not only annihilate people. I mean, in one of the recent attacks that Truth Nigeria has reported on, putting women and children inside cages in the market and burning them alive. I mean, I was sitting down to dinner in my hometown in Texas one Friday night years ago. My husband was with me. It was when we were trying to get the sound of freedom was being blocked because people didn't want child trafficking to be a conversation everyone was having. And we were doing our best to help get that movie put out. And I got a video. I showed it to my husband as we sat down. He couldn't eat. And it was a young 18-year-old girl from Nigeria who was pulled from one of the villages. And as they were slicing off her head, they were digging her baby out of her tummy. And she was well advanced in pregnancy. That's the reality of what, when you put those numbers up and you go before your colleagues in Congress and you put those numbers forward, that's what it means in human terms. I mean, Lawrence once was calling Doug and myself, he's sitting in the back of a meat wagon on the bodies of his friends and neighbors with malaria. Remember, after that he went out with malaria for weeks. I mean, these the courage of the people who are on the front lines reporting this cannot be overstated. But the challenge that they face is that the media itself denies the reality that they see and report on with their own eyes and ears. I mean, that's without conscience. Honestly, I stand before all of you in the National Press Club of the United States of America, the most powerful free nation on earth, where we have First Amendment rights. And I cannot say strongly enough to the press corps, do your job. Do your job. Because we are supposed to be the inspiration and also the safety net for journalists everywhere. It is truly without conscience that you can witness the execution of people and have it denied because journalists are too lazy, too corrupt, too stupid, too cowardly to stand up and tell the truth. That is without conscience. And, you know, we have to stop being afraid of what people will say to us. We have to stop allowing those who tell the truth to be punished and those who lie to be rewarded.
Yes, are you shocked? Don't be shocked, because the world knows what is going on in Nigeria. Yes, Fani Kayode carrying home, come on. Sometimes, you know, the internet doesn't forget. All these things that we are saying now, tomorrow they will bring it out. So Kayode own don't come out. His own version. Yes, he don't come out concerning the Ali Modu Sheriff issue. Yes, so let's hear Fani Kayode.
Chief Fani Kayode, tell me.
Essay, and many people compare what I'm saying.
Chief Fani Kayode, people will be wondering, why is Chief Fani Kayode talking about this right now and not before now, when we were facing these issues of Boko Haram? And is it because he's now become the party chairman that you're voicing your thoughts about your knowledge about Senator Ali Modu Sheriff?
Sheryl, I think we need to move away from political correctness in this country. And I think we should stop being scared of speaking the truth and saying it as it is. Now, if I may, I will tell you the basis under which I am saying this. I don't say it's based on rumor. I don't say it for fun. And I don't take pleasure in saying it, because this is somebody I have known for many, many years, since we were both in the NRC in the early 90s. And I have nothing personal against him. But I must tell you that if he wants to convince the world that he has nothing to do with Boko Haram, then let him explain his relationship with Muhammad Yusuf, the man who started Boko Haram and who was murdered in mysterious circumstances by the police. Let him tell us how it was, or who it was, that he was using as his local thugs whilst he was governor of Borno State, two-time governor, who his local thugs were, who led those local thugs, and let him tell us that it wasn't Muhammad Yusuf that actually led them and that he wasn't funding and organizing them. Let him tell us who asked Yaradua to send in the soldiers and kill as many people as possible of the Boko Haram group simply because he was tired of them and he was fed up with giving them money. Let him tell us how it is that he appointed as Commissioner for Religious Affairs an individual by the name of Buju Foye or something like that. And this man was the person that was giving those boys money and keeping them happy. And let him finally tell us under what circumstances Buju Foye was killed after the investigations began, and the likelihood is that he would have given evidence as to the fact that he had been used to fund and support these boys whilst they were operating at the local level. Now, at this time, they were operating at the local level. What happened was there was a big fallout, as there always is, between gangsters and people like that. One thing I will not do is associate myself with a political party that has a man with such antecedents behind him. So that's the first aspect. Now, the second aspect is this. I am asserting, and I'm saying it again, that the way Boko Haram started, he had a hand in it. He funded them at the local level. He was using them as his personal thugs until the time that Muhammad Yusuf was arrested. When Muhammad Yusuf was arrested and was under interrogation, somebody killed him. Somebody gave that order so that he wouldn't expose so much. The next thing that happened, a couple of years later, his own commissioner, who had been briefed and who had, for a number of years, been funding these boys, was also interrogated. He too was killed under mysterious circumstances, and so on and so forth. And what then happened was that they turned on him and held him responsible for the death of their leader and for the death of his own commissioner, because they believed, rightly or wrongly, that he wanted to cover certain things up. Now that's the history of it. I have a very good friend who is now a governor in Kaduna State. He told me something a number of years ago. And he told me that, look, if we wanted to solve the problem of Boko Haram, all we needed to do was ensure that justice was done, and those that ordered the killing of Muhammad Yusuf and a number of other people to cover up their own antecedents should be brought to book, arrested, prosecuted, and jailed. We didn't do that. And these boys went to the streets, started killing everybody until an international dimension entered it. The whole thing was hijacked by Al-Qaeda, ISIL, and of course some local politicians in Nigeria, and it became the monster that we have today.
All right, that is Fani Kayode, what he said earlier, some years before now that the whole thing busted again. Yes, the issue of the Igbos that went to represent the Southeast, in bracket Nigeria, on the international space, the matter is still on. People are still talking that the guy that used his money to sponsor them is tribalistic. Can you imagine? Eh? That is tribalistic according to the feelers that we are having. Somebody organized something to make Southeast a better place is now a problem. Does anybody say you should not organize Southwest or Northeast or Northwest on? Nobody. He did it himself. He came out successful. Now let's see the more explanations to that. This is the best explanation so far I have got in that regards, and you are going to see exactly what truly transpired in that competition that they went in Rome.
A man in Nigeria used his personal funds to sponsor 3 kids to Rome for an international maths competition. No government, no support. Instead of Nigerians praising him, they went on Twitter and called him a tribal bigot. You need to sit down for this one because it gets even messier. Let's get into the story. Who is even this guy we are talking about? His name is Alex Onya. He's from Enugu State. Before all this education stuff, all this brouhaha, he actually worked with Facebook. Yes, the Meta people on their platform partnership team for Africa and the Middle East. He had a corporate job, soft life. He didn't need to stress about anything, but he had a bigger dream. He decided to leave all that life behind and go fully into educational tech. That was how Alex built the biggest edtech platform in Africa called Educare, reaching over 1 million students. This is not a small feat at all. The man practically built a whole infrastructure for student learning. This already establishes that he is passionate about education in Africa. Now, this is where it gets even more interesting. While other people were busy sponsoring reality TV shows that does nothing for our kids and our educational system, Alex said, wait a minute, I think I can do something different. So this was what Alex did. He went and met some major stakeholders. He met Sterling Bank, he met Terra Industries co-founder. He said, let us do something different for our region. He said, what do you want to do, this education man? He said, okay, let us host a regional maths competition for students in the Southeast. Now, this competition would cover Enugu State, Imo State, Anambra, Abia, and Ebonyi. This is what our money can handle. These people say, I agree with you. Let's also do this to encourage the young ones. So these people all together pooled over 28 million naira and decided to host the first regional Southeast maths competition for both primary and secondary school students. The prize gifts were mouth-watering. So mouth-watering that everybody, teachers or students or parents were pushing their children. The first ever edition recorded over 11,000 participants. For the primary section, the prize gifts range from 2 million to 5 million for the winners, while for the secondary section, it ranged from 5 million to 10 million naira. Imagine that you sent your child to school and they went and won a competition and came back with 10 million naira. Oh my goodness, every parent wanted their child to be part of this. Because for once, academic competition now equaled on the same wavelength with music competitions and even some other reality TV shows. So everybody was pumped up. After they completed this competition, 3 kids stopped the competition: Ethan, Victor, and Marvelous. And it was at this point that this story stopped being a regional Southeast story. It now became a global story. These 3 children, Victor, Ethan, and Marvelous, their performance was so strong that it got the eye of international competitions. Because of this, they got an invitation to participate in the International STEM Olympiad Grand Finale happening in Rome. These kids were supposed to compete with over 150 countries. But here's the catch. Nobody was going to be paying for this. Normally, in other countries who have their priorities right, the government is supposed to take up this project and sponsor the kids to Rome. But we all know how it is in our country, where our priorities move from snatching ballot boxes to sending people for religious pilgrimage instead of funding our educational system. And so, Alex, seeing these 3 kids, he didn't want their start to diminish. He didn't want them to give up on learning. And he said, okay, I'm going to do something that nobody expects. Alex decided that he was going to fund the entire trip from his own pocket. And so Alex sponsored these 3 kids and their teachers to Rome, spending over 32,000 euros on flights, accommodation, amongst every other thing involved, out of his own pocket. No support whatsoever. Now, you would think that after doing all of this, Alex would get praises. You would think people would shower him with so much praises. But no, That was not the case because he started getting dragged on Twitter. Why were they dragging him? These people, mostly Emilokon supporters, said, why would Alex host competition only in the Southeast? He's a tribal bigot. Why didn't he also host it in places like Lagos? Why didn't he get Yoruba representative also? He's not representing the true Nigerian spirit. This is wrong on all levels. Aye. Alex could not hold himself. He came out and said, hold up. I am not a government official. I am not the president of Nigeria. Neither am I the minister of education in this country. Every single thing I did from my own pocket and in my own region where I have some kind of control and have support from. Why would I take my money and sponsor kids from other regions when nobody is doing it from my region? This is a self-funded project. You can do it. You have big boys and big girls in your regions. Galvanize them. Let them host it. Or you yourself can also host competitions like this and sponsor kids also to international competitions. While all of these controversies were happening, that was when we found out that there was another kid from Port Harcourt, very brilliant kid. You know what happened to this child? He actually qualified for another international Olympiad maths competition in China. His school wrote to Ministry of Education and said, oh, look at our boy. He has qualified. Let us sponsor him. Ministry of Education said they do not have money for that. There's no allocation for that. That was how this boy missed out on that competition and didn't go to China at all. When he also revealed, Ministry of Education came out and said, we did not see any letter. We did not receive anything. No. Of course, they will never receive anything apart from allocations. So whether it was communication breakdown or plain negligence, the fact is that that boy from Port Harcourt missed his chance to go to China and compete in an international maths competition. And yet, these Emilokon people did not scream about that. They didn't see anything wrong. But it was when Alex, an individual who personally funded this trip, came out, that was when all of them came out and started attacking him. Meanwhile, in Rome, the kids have already taken the exams. We are waiting for their results. I saw some of their interviews and some of them said, oh, it was hard. It was not that hard. I didn't get like 4 questions. When I heard that was said, I didn't get like 4 questions. I said, these children no book. And while they are waiting for their results, Alex is busy taking them on tours around Europe. Because for him, this is not just about the competition. It's about exposure. Letting kids from Enugu, Imo, Anambra, tour the world, look at the possibilities beyond their classroom. Look at heights that they can actually reach only if they put in the effort. And it's working. Because since this story blew up, over 30,000 students have registered for the next regional maths competition happening. More kids are now striving hard to read, to do better in maths, in STEM, so that they can come first in this competition. Say what you want to say about the tribalism debate. You are allowed to do so. But can we strip away all these nonsensical talks and look at what happened for a second? One man with his own money, he didn't wait for government support, did what a whole Ministry of Education could not do. He didn't wait for permission. He just built something and the kids showed up. The truth is that governance is not that hard. It's not nearly as hard as further mathematics. And if one man can revive the hope back in our learning system, imagine what a functional government can do. If this story moved you even a little, like, share, comments, and tag someone who needs to hear this. Alex Onya needs to be celebrated. He has done so well, and we'll keep on giving him all the support he needs. Well done, Alex. Ngwano. Bye.
Well, that is the Nigeria that we find ourselves today, and many people are not happy about what is happening. Every day one new case will come out, and either one scam or the other. If not, insecurity is another issue of money. Well, it's very unfortunate that these things are happening and people's lives are also at line. Having said that, let's take a close watch at this. You are going to gain it a lot if you don't miss any part of it. So let's watch this.
Very quickly, we heard that Shetima may be replaced for 2027. There was a closed-door meeting to decide. They're trying to strategically look for a deputy, a vice presidential candidate from the north as well, that will supposedly strengthen the possibility for the president to re-emerge in 2027, like win the elections in 2027. Do you think that Shetima's people will allow that? Or that would be a minus for Tinubu if he does do that?
Tinubu is in a dilemma. You know, all this master strategy, it is not in all cases so. The strategy here is not working because I think America has given him a condition. No more Muslim ticket. And so he's trying to see how he will maneuver it to get the approval of America, because already America have told you that they are going to watch this election closely. And a man's report is being released in America as we speak. So all this is making Tinubu to be in a quandary. He doesn't know how to manage this situation. To make matters worse, APC winners in the primary, whose name were supplanted, are raising hell. So how will Tinubu carry all these baggages into 2027?
Well, our next schedule is closing up for all the candidates that will be participating in these elections. And political parties are struggling to make sure they meet up with the deadline, to make sure that all the candidates that will be participating their list would have been submitted. During the screening, the president was exempted. But the president said that during the 2026 National Convention, then the president will formally pick his VP candidate. You know, although Felix Smoker has said that we shouldn't supposedly believe anything we hear yet, that they're all conjectures and speculations, but there are talks that it would be a good strategic move if Shettima doesn't continue in 2027. But either way, so wouldn't that be a slide on this administration if they decide to change Shettima? And who do you think would be someone they will consider to deputize?
Shettima is not a strong man politically in the north. He's not even from the strong man politically in the north. He's not even from the Hausa Fulani. He's a Kanuri man. All these things is going to play against him. You know, and the president doesn't know how to play northern politics. He doesn't know Hausa politics. Seriously, he may be good in manipulating the Yorubas and all that. But the North, he cannot manipulate them. That is the issue here. There is no strong Northerner today that you can bank on to go for APC, because many Northerners, because of the hardship, they are against Tinubu and his administration. So who is that Northerner that will sell APC to the North as a vice president? Who is that person? No person. No person. Unfortunately, Tinubu did not see this ahead of time, because if he knew, he would have projected somebody since 2025 and begin to groom that person, begin to make that person warm into the heart of the North, especially the Fulani oligarchy in the North. He didn't do all these things until America now brought this condition for him. So he's looking for a way to overcome all these challenges. That is why nobody is talking about that aspect of his election. Nobody. And so we need to see what will happen at the end of the day. Except already he wants to fail. That's just the truth. He has done everything to placate the North, but they are what? Implacable. The North is implacable because of what Tinubu have done so far against them, and which they are angry about. In fact, they told him, they once told him that this is not our agreement. They once told Tinubu, but this was not our agreement. That means there was an agreement which Tinubu did not fulfill. That's just the truth. He didn't reckon that things will go this south. He didn't. For the North to come out and say, this was not our agreement, we are not going to vote you again in 2027. That means there is problem ahead. I said there are things that Tinubu should have done, which he did not do.
Like what, sir?
Good. This his soul restructuring.
Yes.
Esther, if Tinubu had called the northern,
you said soul restructuring. Like he's restructuring without carrying others along?
Exactly.
What way is he restructuring, sir?
Good. So this police. And then the ministry that he's trying to...
But the state police is something they are all deliberating at the Senate. And at the Senate, you have almost every representative across the 36 states of the Federation, including the Northerners.
Esther,
sir?
The so-called police, like I told you, have you seen the bill and the contents?
It's still being looked into.
But it has been passed into law already. Is that not true?
It has not been passed into law.
Really? But hold on.
But it has gone through first reading.
Yes.
Second reading.
Exactly. So what else is left?
The senators have to look at it again and see where there are discrepancies.
Did you hear what they are telling you now? That they are going to look at some issues.
Yes.
Those issues. Why didn't you look at it before you go into passing it through the first and second reading? I was thinking that this type of thing should be debated. There should be public hearing and all that.
So, do you see why the president thinks that the insecurity is deliberate by some certain persons, possibly to expedite the state police?
It's a lie.
Okay.
It has been there since 3 years ago, since he came into office. What was he doing? It's just a campaign issue. That's how everybody will look at it, including me. I see it as a campaign issue. All this thing that he's trying to do now is a campaign issue, nothing else. After all, they have been there since 3 years ago. Why didn't you start from that time? Why didn't you start? You just want to play, or you are working towards an answer, and you believe everybody will just buy into it. No, it's not possible. Even the state police, was it properly structured? Esther, was it properly structured? Because if you go and look at some of the content of that bill, the people in Abuja are still in control of the police. The state police is just there. They will still be taking order from Abuja, because they said that whenever there is any incident of terrorism, when the state police capture them, they will now hand over to the federal police. Esther, does it make sense? No, does it make sense? So what are you now? But the main reason for this state police, was it not because of insecurity? So if the police cannot handle it in the state, then of what use is that state police? Of what use? There are so many things in that bill that is very suspicious. The powers given to the state police is like, they are just like Boy Scout. Esther, they are just like Boy Scout. And so they are going to rework that bill.
Well, yes, what is left now, Barrister, it has not yet been passed into law, but obviously it has gone through the first and second reading. What is left is for the state approval. The bill has been transmitted to the 36th Houses of Assembly, requires approval from at least 2/3, 24 of them, and obviously a presidential assent. After passing through the state assemblies, it must be signed by the president. There are certainties that all of these constituency members representing 36 states will assent to this. So you consider it to be a sort of restructuring?
No. Look, that is the problem I have with this administration.
Okay.
Whatever they want to do, Esther, they will not do it in such a way that it will be clear-cut.
Okay.
It will be sustainable. Check, for example, the PIA that Buhari signed into law. Esther, up to today, any news from there? Has it not gotten worse? The PIA, Petroleum Industrial Act. What is going on there? Nothing. What is the benefit for? Nothing. Esther, nothing. The fuel subsidy removal, what are we getting from there? Nothing. Esther, the financial autonomy for local government, what are you getting there? Nothing. Up to today, nothing. You can go on. Even the tax reform, do you know that up to today that thing has not been launched? Are you aware?
But it's happening already. It's already been implemented.
Good.
Because we're even hearing persons being forcefully taxed.
Of course, it's going
you have
on.
to do that. If you don't do that, there are coming persons.
Who is now the finance minister? Said that what he saw there, what he saw in circulation, was not what they proposed in that tax reform. He said it. Esther, he said it. So when all these things are going on, so what can you hold on to now and say, yes, in this area, APC have done so well? Esther, what? What? You don't do things upside down, do it haphazardly. Is it because you lack the intelligence or wisdom to do it, or you are doing it to please yourself and not Nigerians? Which one are we going to follow here? Nothing. We said here we need state police. Is it in this manner? It is by the time they start implementation, Esther, you now see the booby trap. You now see the loopholes. You now ask yourself, then what was the need for the state police? If all these things are still there, Esther, these are issues. I don't know why Tinubu choose to do things upside down. I don't know why. I just read examples for you here. Tell me that thing they have done that, yes, it is for the benefit of the whole Nigerian and it is sustainable. Mention it. Esther, mention it. all his actions littered with loopholes. Loopholes. I mean, gaping loopholes. Why didn't somebody think of it before they went to the public with it? You don't do things like kindergarten students, and at the end of the day, the thing will backfire. It will backfire. Look at the rehabilitation of terrorists. Is that how the UN proposed it? Is that how they said it, that you are doing it? Is that how? No, it is not. It is not. If not, the people that America took to Guantanamo Bay from Iraq, they wouldn't have gone there. All the notorious terrorists from Iraq, when they invaded, they kept them there, and they dealt with them. They were all passed. They were all judged. So I don't get it. When Tinubu begin to do things upside down, you capture notorious terrorists. I mean, the dreaded ones among them that are supposed to go to jail. He said you are rehabilitating them.
Barrister, in terms of education, the president actually initiated a school feeding program. It was meant to run between 2023 to 2027, and the way it was going to be done was going to be divided from state and local governments. So it will start from local governments, where each schools are given a free hot meal every day, at least once a day. They'll have adequate meal, free meals across all the either state government schools and federal government schools as well. That's the school feeding program. And the plan is actually to have a situation where you have almost 10 million Nigerian children having access to the school feeding program. All right. Although we heard that they relocated that to the Ministry of Education, and we've not been getting updates. I don't know if any of these children are benefiting from it. Please, if your child is in primary school, any of the state governments or in the local government that you know, please let us know if this school feeding program is still continuous, because there was a time we heard there was a pause on it, that they were now going to make it a feeding program for hungry children, when Nigeria was tagged as the first country, the number one country for malnourished children, either in the world or in Africa, thereabout, superseding Sudan, war-torn Sudan and all of that. And they had to supposedly reorganize that program. Okay. And about how much millions were released for that under the former Minister of Finance. Isn't that a positive initiative of this administration?
There is nothing positive here, because the program was not intended to succeed.
It was not intended to succeed?
No,
how do you start a program you don't intend to succeed?
Because that is what you wanted to achieve.
I don't understand.
Yes, you wanted publicity, not achievement. When that thing was started, you did not even resolve the issue of Sadiat and
Sadia Umar Farouk.
You didn't resolve the issue. You didn't resolve the issue of Betedu.
That was why it was relocated from Humanitarian Affairs to Ministry of Education.
Good. At the end of the day, what happened, Esther? Have you seen the children you are talking about? Have you gone to the interior villages and seen these children? Some of them, their head is bigger than their entire body.
Somebody just sent a message that they have closed it.
Oh, really?
They have closed the program.
Oh, really? Over what? Corruption. Of course, corruption. Because it was so humongous. Even after Betedu and Umar Farouk, they still went ahead to tell you that this thing is in their DNA, Esther. And they know that nothing will happen. No. If they know that something will happen, they won't try it. Esther, there was the time a woman that was heading an institution, that is doing the work of NAFDAC in Nigeria, in China. The woman allowed a contaminated, contaminated supplement or something into the market, and people died. Esther, while the world were pleading on her behalf to spare her, Chinese government executed her. Esther, executed. Do you think anybody that go to that office will mess up again with that example? Look, when we are talking of leadership, Esther, this APC, they don't know what is leadership. I've been saying it, and I have facts. They don't know what is leadership, Esther. All their actions is so awkward. All their behavior, all their utterances, so awkward. I can't hold anything that is saying, yes, there is discipline here. Everybody is doing whatever they like. I told you here that everybody that got appointment in this administration, they have seen it as a means to cash out. Esther, they have seen it as a means to cash out. In fact, if there is no, they will create their own organization and start making money. They will create it their own organization and start making money because they know that nothing will happen. Esther, nothing will happen. So if there is a country where there is no discipline, please, how can that country move forward? Yesterday, you read out the amount of money that Serapis are asking Tinubu to account.
Yes, and a lot of a host of others that has not been able to make it to the court.
Billions, hundreds of billions, Esther. Nobody is talking about them. So how can you move forward? So what is that thing I can hold on to today about Tinubu and say, yes, in this area he has done so well? Look at, I was wondering how who will cook the meal in the first place?
No, there were women cooking the meal. It was actually a means for employment. They were being paid.
Please, are they getting quality food? Is the money, are they getting value for the food? I remember when one man said, instead of...
Baris, are you saying that none of his initiatives were actually good if it was followed through? Because the concept, if you look at his concept, on paper it's beautiful, it's perfect. If it is properly executed, the school feeding program for the children was a very beautiful initiative. I was a beneficiary of that system, very, very strong beneficiary of that system. What I don't know is why it was stopped. Yes. And then they told us millions of money is given to the underprivileged, but we did not see the evidence of that. Mr. Wale Edun told us about that, but we didn't see that staunch evidence of that to buttress the authenticity of that disbursement.
Any initiative that is littered with corruption will never succeed. Quote me. And Tinubu is aware of these things, but he refused to act.
No, I wanted to understand why was this? Why did the school feeding program stop?
Because of corruption. The money was not getting down to the people who needed the food.
So they were rechanneling the money, which seems to be an attribute of these guys.
As every other thing. Esther, how do you think that somebody will use that money judiciously when you know that nothing will happen if they chop the money? The contractors are just lining their pockets. So, and they know that nothing will happen. That's even the main issue. If you are punishing those who did it in the past, I'm sure the new people will now sit up. Is that not true? But they know that nothing will happen. That's why whatever project, whatever initiative, they just do it anyhow. They just, instead of making use of the money.
Well, you were right.
So
the suspension was actually true. It was enacted after the president raised concerns about improprieties in beneficiary payments. Apparently, certain persons were rechanneling the fund barely a few months after the school feeding program commenced. We thought that he'll be done with that investigation and recontinue that initiative, or possibly look for another agency that would be responsible for overseeing that and ensuring that monies were not rechanneled. Because in January 2024, that there was an extensive investigation into the financial malfeasance and operational lapses within the National Social Investment Program Agency. That was the agency that was responsible for overseeing that. So it was enacted, and then it led to the suspension of top officials in Tinubu's government, which included the NSIPA CEO Halima Shehu and Minister of Humanitarian Affairs Madam Betta Edu over these financial irregularities. But then that was what led them relocating it to the Ministry of Education after they had done their investigations and found that the monies were being rechanneled. So why not resuscitate that program? It's actually a very good initiative.
You know, I have told you here, sir, when you have ill health, is it not somebody in the medical field that you will approach? Either a nurse or a doctor. Is that not true? So when you want to initiate a program and you call Agberos to come and pilot it, to come and do the
so Halima Shehu and Beta Edu, they were Agberos, female Agberos.
Esther,
sir?
Agbero has category. Agbero has category.
Paris, I kindly categorize and factorize the Agbero levels.
Good. Now, let us start from Esoluoma. who is that? In fact, he's at the head of them.
According to Motor Park chairman.
So at the head of them, you can imagine when a police and army are guarding such a person. So if you now check from that height, there are those being. Do you know that MC Oluomo is more important to Tinubu than some ministers? Are you aware?
I'm not aware.
Oh my God, Esther, MC Oluomo is more important to Tinubu's government than some ministers.
Really?
Yes. Tell me any minister that is enjoying the privilege MC Oluomo is enjoying. Please tell me. Tell me just one minister that the police and army are guarding, that he moves in convoy in such a manner, that even disobey court order. And tell us that unless Tinubu tell him, he will not obey the order. Just mention one person, Esther, since you don't know that Agboro has category. No, are you going to ask me question again? Oh,
Barrister.
So you can see it.
Do you have a business idea, all right? A startup, an existing business you want to expand, or a project that needs funding? This information is for you. So pay keen attention and listen attentively. So if you're a business owner, you have a startup, you have a business idea or something existing that you want to expand and you need proper financing for that, the Business Hub International is offering Nigerians a unique opportunity to raise capital for their businesses and projects without borrowing money. Very key. All right, it's an international hub, a business hub international, offering Nigerians a unique opportunity to raise capital for their businesses and projects without borrowing money. Very key. Participants will also benefit from a free 12-month mentorship program, and obviously with experienced experts in the field, they will guide you towards your success in this endeavor. So the program is also open to individuals seeking to earn extra income for personal needs such as school fees, rent, and other important projects. So if you're simply interested in this, if you're interested to fund your projects or whatever it is you want to do, an idea, something, you need a seed capital, but you don't want to borrow, this is a concept that you need to embrace. All right, so if you're interested, you need to just simply text yes. You're not going to anybody, you will just simply text yes to a number and they'll attend to you. So text yes or WhatsApp. On WhatsApp, you text yes on WhatsApp to this number. So pay attention and write down these numbers: 091 58 96 4150. I'll take that again, okay? 091 58 96 4150. You can send yes in caps, that's capital letters, to that number, or you can actually do the same with this number: 080 64 66 7046. I'll take that again: 080 64 66 7046. So just send yes to the following numbers I just reeled out, either via text or WhatsApp. So only the first 30 people to respond from this broadcast I just made will receive free consultancy. All other applications will be required to pay a consultancy fee of 20,000 naira. So if you're wise, if you're smart, click fast fingers, send yes to those numbers that I just called out. Okay, so the venue for this particular business summit is a Villa Park Hotel, Amuwo Odofin in Festac, Lagos. Villa Park Hotel, Amuwo Odofin, Festac, Lagos. So only 30 participants will be selected from this broadcast for free consultancy. If you're not part of the first 30, you definitely pay 20,000 naira for consultancy fee. So if you don't want to miss out, make sure you send yes to those numbers. Do not delay. Well done. Barrister, we're talking about the school feeding program before we went on the break.
Yeah,
in 2024,
Esther.
in August of 2024, the federal government told us they were relaunching that initiative. But right now, that we're being told that it's not active.
It cannot be active. because that place is like a cesspool of corruption. That is why I told you that it was never meant to succeed, Esther. It was never meant to succeed. Look, all these ad hoc arrangements, cash transfer, social investment program, these things can never pull people out of poverty. It can never, Esther. It can never. Because check, all the while Tinubu was doing all these things, Esther, what happened? We inherited 41% from Buhari poverty level. Now it is 63%. With all the interventions, so it's now 63% poverty level in Nigeria. And so, do you need anybody to tell you that your interventions are not working? No. Do you need anybody to tell you? And then you stop. There should be a better way of doing things. Like I mentioned the other time, Esther, when you want to do something of this, you call people. There are experts who do this thing. You have social welfare in America. Is that not true? Most people that go to America, in fact, they live on those things. The government planned in such a way that it has never failed. Since 1935, it has never failed, Esther. Why not call experts? Go and learn from people who have been doing it. How did you do this thing? You study, you understudy people who have been there.
Well,
to know how
Barrister,
they are doing
you're
it.
very right about the poverty level. 63% of Nigeria's population lives below the poverty line. An estimated 140 million Nigerians are living in multi-dimensional poverty. Out of an estimated 220 million of Nigerians, you have 140 million Nigerians in multi-dimensional poverty. And at least 63% of Nigerians are living in this multi-dimensional poverty, lacking access to basic necessities like healthcare, education, or even clean water. Poverty levels rose from an estimated 56% at the earlier period of this administration in 2023 during the early stages because of the supposed major economic reforms being conducted by this administration and the petrol subsidy removal to 63%. So why have they not rejigged their economic policies if the policy data and percentage is on the rise?
Because they are lacking the manpower. Esther, I told you here.
Who is lacking the manpower? The FG.
The government.
But if the government says, we have supporters who call into this program to tell us that his economic reforms are the best, why you now have a situation when he came on board, it was at 53%, now is at 63%. Multi-dimensional poverty, an estimated 140 million Nigerians, 220 or thereabout 210 million Nigerians minus 140 million. That's the kind of increment. So we don't even have an average level. If that is the case, what economic policy indices are you applying that seems to be nosediving rather than resuscitating as you promised?
When you hear sycophants, they are the most dangerous people any government can listen to. Sycophants. Esther, they have led many into the lagoon unknown to them. I'm not joking. Sycophants. Telling you, you are doing so well. You are doing so well. Don't mind those people. Don't mind, Meanwhile, things are getting bad. That is what is deceiving Tinubu. If not, he would have taken a look at what he's doing and find out whether he's actually in the right direction and stop listening to sycophants. They are busy in this administration. They are very, very busy.
Somebody who works, the leader of Flutterwave says that the presidency is really not aware of what is happening in the politics. You believe so?
Look, Esther.
You believe so?
I think so.
Okay, let's take a listen to this. Let's take a listen. Yes.
I don't even believe in what that man is doing.
I've sat with the president maybe twice, right? Very briefly. What you don't realize about the president, doesn't actually know what's going on. Honestly, how would he know? He's in a motorcade. He's driving so fast, he can't see anything. Right? His phone is not with him. There's an aide. If he doesn't want you to talk to the president, you can't talk to the president. Everybody who comes to him is scheduled. You can't meet him on the streets. The guy actually does not know anything that's happening in the country. And he has security briefings, meaning he doesn't read newspapers. So all he knows is whatever they give him in that security briefing. 100 million people could have died yesterday. If they don't want him to know, he will not know. I can tell you for free, he will not know. The principal secretary of the president, he doesn't want him to know something, he would not know what happened.
One day I read in the headline that I said Tinubu's cost big in the economy, and Nigerian economy is expanding. The very next day, the same newspaper turned to another page, especially the backline. I encountered another headline: Nigeria's economy falters as Tinubu loses grip. I didn't know Segun Adeniyi will be here tonight. His last back page on security. I see I have a copy on my desk. Very rich outline. Thank you very much for keeping us very well. I read it all. And one person that is not here, that I read recently at the back page of Guardian, was Lanre Babalola. He was talking of zero road, no electricity. You are alternating generators and all of that. We will be there.
So, Barrister, you heard where Flutterwave CEO is saying the presidency is not wrong. You now heard the president telling us how he reads the headlines.
Yes,
on the mentioned the Guardian newspaper, check the name of the journalist who wrote the report. So, who should we believe? You're going to hear from the president's mouth. He knows.
Yes, he knows. Seriously, he knows. You understand what is. That's why whenever he wants to talk, he said that I understand your pains, but it will soon be over.
So that means nobody should exonerate him by saying that he's been isolated and doesn't know what is going on, because this counters it. For him to accurately remember the headlines.
I wasn't mentioning the names of the writers.
Exactly.
So he knows. We did it for Buhari. Everybody was exonerating him, this and that.
No, but they came out to tell us it was possible because during the most of Buhari's tenure, he was sick. So it's obvious that they could have presented false narratives. He was literally absent in his administration.
What he was pretending to be sick.
The barrister, the wife came out to confirm it. You knew that. You knew what happened after that. In fact, a lot of things were exposed after his then handler died from COVID. Yes, Barrister.
No, a lot should be revealed to us about Buhari.
Okay, so Barrister, on the political scene, the opposition, for example, Atiku is asking the president to tell us about his background and his profile, that nobody knows about his background and his profile. I remember asking you this question during the World News at 6, and I asked of what benefit will that be at this time to understand the president's profile. And he's also insisting that Baja must resign because of the accumulated corruption cases to close personnel in the cabinet of the presidency. So, Barrister, did Tinubu lie about his profile that we supposedly read out on Google or Wikipedia that was presented to us? And of what use now, though Atiku is asking the right question, but of what use would that be? What controversy would that generate?
One of the principles, in fact, one of the criteria for public office is your identity.
Yes.
True or false?
True.
You must identify the person that want to occupy this office. Is he qualified? Is he credible? Does he have what it takes? Yes, sir, these are very important criteria. You cannot bypass it, even in the Western world. That is why whenever anybody wants to be American, they will start from his childhood. Esther, they will start from childhood to monitor this guy, know where he's coming from. That's why immediately the man came up. You see all the newspaper, they will publish his profile all over. Everybody will be reading it, In the case of Tinubu, have you read or have you seen any of these things about him, Esther? Please tell me the truth. Have you read or have you seen? In December 2025, when he celebrated your festival for his son, something that is an abomination, I said something here that, look, one day the Tinubu family, the original Tinubu family in Lagos, they will tell us what they are doing with Tinubu in Abuja. They will tell us, because they have kept silent now, pretending as if they don't know what is going on. But I know that a day will come when they will come out to tell us, we don't know this, we don't know that, because a book was published some time ago telling Tinubu to come and tell them his own genealogy in the Tinubu dynasty. You understand? But he didn't answer them. He didn't say anything. And so they kept quiet. They didn't come out to denounce or say anything. No, they kept quiet. Meanwhile, they are enjoying some of the goodies. Is that not true? When Madam Tinubu died here, we saw the burial and everything. We saw what happened. So what are you telling me here, Esther? These are the first things. So when you have given somebody a position that he is not qualified for, Esther, he will mess it up. Esther, he will mess it up. There's no two ways about it. You can't give what you don't have. It's not possible. You can never give what you don't have, no matter how you try. Even if you surround yourself with experts. Is that not what they tell you? The experts may be deceiving you, but you will not know because you don't know what they are telling you. You don't even know anything about governance. You don't what they tell you, believe. And then in that process, you will not do your own. And because they don't believe in what you are doing, they will keep quiet, allowing you to fail. That is just it. So that they will be making the country through you. They will be siphoning money through you. And because you don't have the guts to challenge them as a weak person, you will not do anything. If you are strong and you are in charge, nobody will mess up with you now. In fact, your presence will be fear for them. Esther, your presence is enough to keep them in order. Look at Donald Trump. He's always with his phone. He tweets on the go. He sacked his seat off. He's standing up. He just sent a text message. Secretary of State. The man he tweet on the go. He doesn't all this protocol. He doesn't have time for it. That is a president that is hands-on. Here, do we have such a thing? All this iPhone, phone, and whatever. Are you sure Tinubu knows how to operate them? Esther, no. Is it possible that Tinubu knows how to operate all those?
Well, for what we can tell, the president is asking the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission (FCCPC) to investigate top global technology companies and generative artificial intelligence platforms over allegations of anti-competitive practices and unlawful exploitation of the content of Nigerian media organizations. So they're going to investigate X, they're going to investigate Meta, and they're also going to investigate Google. The federal government has asked them to investigate them. This is following a joint petition submitted to the presidency by the Nigerian Press Organization, NPO. A statement issued today by the Director of Corporate Affairs at the FCCPC, Ondaje Ijagu. He said the investigation would focus on allegations against major technology companies, Meta, Alphabet, which owns Google and X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as certain generative AI platforms.
Is what they tell him that he will follow. Esther, in this particular case, listen, that he read one newspaper, this and that. Does it show that he knows what is going on? No, tell me, does he show? We are talking of critical issues of the polity. He is not aware. He doesn't. If he does, he cannot be behaving in this manner. That's what we are saying here.
Well,
like all these things that happened under Gbajabiamila and all that. He should have. He should have pointed it out. He should have pointed because he signed that budget. He signed it.
Oh, Barrister, you know Ali Modu Sheriff. On a monitored program just this evening, Ali Modu Sheriff is saying that Peter Obi wants to divide Nigeria because Peter Obi called for the resignation of the president. The president should resign. And so because Peter Obi made that call, he says Peter Obi up to this moment is pursuing the division of Nigeria because he believes in Biafra. And he never condemns Biafra or IPOB as he wants to divide Nigeria. He should come out and say if he doesn't believe in the division of the country. And I heard that these are the narratives being peddled in the northern region against Peter Obi by saying that his ultimatum is to the realization of Biafra and that he never at any point in time had condemned the activities of IPOB.
Are you serious?
Yes. So the big question is what activities of IPOB needs to be condemned, and that anybody who needs to be lead Nigeria is someone that must stand for Nigeria and not for any section.
You can imagine. Esther, you can see people.
That's Ali Modu Sheriff.
I am telling you that these people, they think they are clever. So this insecurity that his people have kept Nigeria under for 15 years now. Did he talk about it? No, hold on. Who is actually trying to divide Nigeria? Is it not the North? Is it not the North? I have said it here that if I have the opportunity, if I have the power, No northern leader will rule Nigeria again. Esther, sincerely speaking, it's just at the south here, I don't know what we are doing. We should have made it, that is a law, that northern Nigeria, nobody will rule Nigeria again from that place. They should come and tell us why they want to destroy Nigeria. Can you just imagine? The people that are doing this into Nigeria are coming out again to blame us. For what? Eh? Look at how they have been pampered. That's why they have the God to open their mouth and say this rubbish. Eh? Look at what the Fulani herdsmen and their killer militia are doing to Nigeria. Ali Modu Sheriff did not see it, Abi. Esther, they did not see all those ones, Abi. It's unfortunate, seriously. They know that we here, I don't know what is wrong with us. Nobody is talking to them. I said we should have made it a law that no northerner can rule Nigeria again. Because if they are not in power and they are behaving like this, imagine when they are in power. That means they will finish everybody in one day.
But he's speaking on behalf of the APC. He's a foundational APC chieftain.
What are you telling me?
And he's not the only one that has been peddling such an information from the All Progressives Congress.
It's just that they don't know how to reply such people. Seriously, Esther, they don't know how to reply them. I'm not joking. You have destroyed Nigeria to this extent and you are still talking. You still have the mouth to talk. Because nobody here is talking to you. Nobody is replying you. These killer herdsmen that are destroying Nigeria, please, where are they from? Is it not from the north? Is it not from the north? So what are they trying to do when they have taken over some swaths of land? And then declared their own caliphate and all that. What does that tell you, Esther? Is it not division of Nigeria? No, hold on, no. Is it not division of Nigeria? Where they have taken some areas and they are now running their own. In fact, they are collecting taxes from locals.
So you know, it was Ali Modu Sheriff that revealed to us that they were the ones who imported Boko Haram to supposedly neutralize Jonathan's administration if he refused to step down. So it's funny coming from him to say Peter Obi wants to divide Nigeria.
Can you imagine if with him and Kawu Baraje?
Because it's funny that he's even still in the APC. For someone who made such an admittance.
That is how they behave, Esther. They deceive you. You think that they are with you. They are not with you. Esther, they are not with you. Seriously. What their brother Buhari did in office, they are not talking about it. The very division Buhari brought into this country, nobody is talking about it. Nepotism was pro-max under Buhari. Nepotism. He was the one that, in fact, he elevated it to state policy. And Tinubu now took advantage and made something out of it. They are not talking about all this in Esther. It is Peter Obi and the Igbos want to bring Biafra. On what ground? Even when Babangida have written a book on this so-called Biafra in 1966, they are still bent on it. Because we are not talking. Esther, we are not talking enough.
So we are speaking. What do you want people to do? It's like you're speaking on something. Some people want to hang on to that narrative because
Esther,
it's an advantage. Why would
anybody accuse the Peter Obi of this type of nonsense? You want to do for what? Have you people not jailed Nnamdi Kanu? Did we riot? Did we protest? No. Have you not jailed Nnamdi Kanu and left your killer terrorists? That are dealing with you in the north there. You are not talking about it. Shame on all of you that are saying this nonsense. Can you just imagine? A place that is littered with terrorists. I mean, foreign terrorists for that matter. You are not talking about it. You now want to face Peter Obi and the Igbos. For what? What have you not done in this country to bring peace? What have you not done, Esther? Just tell me, what have you not done? Yet, they will not let us rest. Every time you look for something to pin the Igbo man there, to bring his name up. For what? Is that how to be united? Look at all the insult and embarrassment we have suffered. Yet we remain peaceful. Yet they are not satisfied. Esther, they are not satisfied. How do you justify that somebody will leave the whole land in the north? They will come to the so-called dot in a circle to take their land by force and occupy it and kill the people that are living there. And the northern leaders are not seeing anything wrong in all this, Esther. Can you just imagine? They didn't see anything wrong in all these things. They didn't. Just because we want peace and we kept quiet. Is that not true?
Now, the only time the Sultan of Sokoto has spoken is concerning the killing of the Makban leader in Benue. And then he has called out and said his death must be investigated. All the killings, all the kidnappings, he has never said anything about it.
I said we have pampered these people for too long, Esther. Seriously, we have pampered them. That's why they still have the mouth to talk.
Well, that's why there are talks that the president is trying to demystify the need of the North when it comes to winning elections.
And he's doing it the proper way, Abi. This thing he's doing now, is that how to demystify the North? Esther, if I had the opportunity, I will call Northern leaders and say, come. You see this your killing spree. You see this your killing culture. You like killing other people, but when they kill one of you, start shouting. It is either you stop it or we divide Nigeria, everybody go your own way. I will tell them, oh. Yes, you like killing Abi. Go and stay with it in your northern region. You should not kill one Nigeria again. If the day you try it, I will divide this country. Everybody go and be killing yourself if you like killing. We want peace, we want to make progress. I will tell them. Maybe that time they will sit up. Why must we be pampering them, Esther? Why must we? No, tell me, why have we not pampered these people enough? Killer Fulani herdsmen, they don't behave arrogantly. They do things as if they own everywhere. And you are telling me demystify. Even Tinubu is afraid of them. Esther, Tinubu is afraid of them as I talk to you now.
Barrister, let's take
That's
reactions.
why he cannot confront them frontally. He cannot confront them.
There are talks that he's waiting until he wins the next dispensation.
Jonathan did the same thing. He never made it. Jonathan did the same thing. He never made it, Esther. Strike while the iron is hot.
All right.
Right, viewers, I thank you for coming along with me. Please, if you have not subscribed to YangaLife channel, please click on the subscription button, notification bell, like this video, and don't forget to share it. Yes, I am still Chinedu till I come your way next time.